What is globalization? Globalization refers to the increasing interconnectedness and interdependence of countries, businesses, and individuals around the world. It is driven by advances in technology, transportation, and communication, which have made it easier and faster to move goods, money, people, and ideas across national borders. Globalization has had a profound impact on economies, societies, and cultures around the world, both positive and negative. Some of the key aspects of globalization include the growth of international trade and investment, the spread of technology and information, and the movement of people across borders.
History of globalization. The history of globalization can be traced back to ancient times, with the movement of goods, people, and ideas across borders taking place for centuries. However, the term globalization itself is a relatively recent invention, and the process of globalization, as we know it today, has its roots in the 20th century. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, advances in transportation and communication technologies, such as the steamship and the telegraph, made it easier and faster to move goods, money, and people across borders. This led to an increase in international trade and investment, and laid the foundation for the globalization we see today.
During the post-World War II period, globalization accelerated further with the creation of international organizations such as the United Nations and the World Bank, as well as the signing of trade agreements such as the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, which helped to reduce barriers to trade and investment. In the 1980s and 1990s, the collapse of the Soviet Union and the rise of China and India as economic powers further accelerated globalization, as these countries opened up to the world economy and became major players in international trade and investment. The introduction of the Internet and the rise of digital technologies in the late 20th century has also played a significant role in globalization, as it has made it easier for people and businesses to communicate and collaborate across borders. What are the positive and negative effects of globalization on economies? The effects of globalization on economies can be both positive and negative. Positive effects include increased economic growth and prosperity, as countries are able to access new markets and resources. Greater access to goods and services, as companies are able to take advantage of economies of scale and offer a wider variety of products at lower prices. Improved efficiency, as companies are able to specialize in the production of goods and services in which they have a comparative advantage. Increased foreign investment, as companies and investors are able to access new opportunities in other countries. Increased competition, which can lead to innovation and better products and services. Negative effects include job loss and wage stagnation, as companies are able to move production to countries where labor is cheaper. Widening income inequality, as the benefits of globalization are not distributed equally. Volatility in financial markets, as global economic conditions can affect countries and companies around the world. Dependence on developed countries, as developing countries may become dependent on foreign investment and trade, leading to a lack of autonomy. Possible negative impacts on domestic industries that are not competitive in the global market. It's worth noting that the effects of globalization on economies can vary depending on the country and its stage of development, as well as the specific policies and institutions in place to manage the process. Also, some countries may have more advantages than others in terms of resources, workforce, location, etc., that may help them to benefit more from globalization. What are the positive and negative effects of globalization on societies? The effects of globalization on societies can be both positive and negative. Positive effects include increased access to education and information, as people are able to learn about and take advantage of new opportunities around the world. Increased cultural exchange, as people are able to learn about and appreciate different cultures. Improved living standards, as people are able to access new technologies, products, and ideas. Increased political and economic freedom, as people are able to access new ideas and ways of organizing society. Increased diversity and multiculturalism, as people from different backgrounds come into contact with one another. Negative effects include widening income inequality, as the benefits of globalization are not distributed equally. Loss of cultural identity, as local cultures and traditions may be replaced by globalized, westernized norms. Increased crime, terrorism, and other social ills, as people and ideas move more easily across borders. Increased pressure on natural resources and environment. Social dislocation, as people may lose their jobs or be forced to move to other countries in search of work. Increased competition for jobs and resources can lead to social unrest and conflicts. It's worth noting that the effects of globalization on societies can vary depending on the country and its stage of development, as well as the specific policies and institutions in place to manage the process. Also, the way people adapt to the changes and the way they are supported by the government can affect the negative effects of globalization on societies. What are the positive and negative effects of globalization on an environment? The effects of globalization on the environment can be both positive and negative. Positive effects include increased access to new technologies and ideas that can lead to more sustainable ways of living and producing goods. Greater international cooperation on environmental issues, as countries and organizations work together to address global challenges such as climate change and deforestation. Increased investment in renewable energy, as companies and governments seek to reduce their carbon footprint and dependence on fossil fuels. Increased awareness and education about environmental issues, as people are exposed to new information and ideas about how to protect the planet. Negative effects include environmental degradation, as companies are able to exploit weaker environmental regulations in other countries. Increased pressure on natural resources, as demand for goods and services increases. Increased carbon emissions and pollution, as the transportation of goods and people across borders increases. Loss of biodiversity, as natural habitats are destroyed to make way for new developments. Increased competition for resources leading to conflicts. It's worth noting that the effects of globalization on environment can vary depending on the country and its stage of development, as well as the specific policies and institutions in place to manage the process. Governments and organizations can also play an important role in promoting sustainable development and protecting the environment by implementing regulations, promoting green technologies, and investing in research and development to mitigate the negative effects of globalization on the environment. How did you see? See you.